today. Commissioner Pollack, and you'll follow her up.
Thank you, Lee. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm pleased to be here significantly because this is a very important organization. It was very important as the Plan 2014 was being developed and understood, and it will continue, you will continue to be very important as we learn, as we go forward in the easy years and in the rough years. And if the last year hasn't been defined as rough, I don't want to hear what rougher means. It was hard. It was hard on everybody, no matter where you lived in the basin. Floods are always hard. Floods on rivers are terrible, but the smaller rivers, they come and they go. Floods on massive bodies of waters come and they stay. And that's a terrifying thing for a lot of people who are living with it. So the IJC is many things. It is not always lucky. If we were lucky, instead of working on this Plan 2014 for 50 plus years, we would have, and implementing it in January of last year, we would have waited a year or two. The flood would have been behind us, and we would have, taken credit for the great year ahead. But we were not lucky. We were, however, very systematic in developing that plan, as the IJC is every bit, a science-based organization, a binational organization. Nothing happens on the IJC but what we aren't thinking equally of Canada and the United States. And I thought of that in Elder Licker's profound, put your mind around this. Who are the people? How broad are you, is your vision? And at the IJC, we know from the treaty, which limits what we can do and also creates what we can do, the Boundary Waters Treaty of 1909, that there are limits on our authority. But the real limiting factor, of course, is Mother Nature. There's no plan that controls what comes in to this basin. There's only a plan that, to some degree, that can influence what goes out of the basin. So I know this is a very informed audience. You understand that when there are exceptional amounts of water, such as we lived through in the last year, there's no place to put it. The other hard factor is that there's no predicting. Science is good, weather services are great, but they can't predict a month out, 2 months out. There's no way. So at the beginning of the year, when the plan was implemented in January of 17, the first 3 months there was a little extra water, but it was exactly the same as the preceding year. So the first 3 months there was 24 inches of water in 2016, and then after that, the water levels went down. The year was entirely manageable. There's always, complaints, but, people had a good year. Last year, it went up exactly like the preceding year, and then it shot up again, 31 extra inches beyond what was there at that point the previous year. No way to predict it. Now, so why don't we just plan on low waters and try and as I get on many telephone calls, just put that lake down right now. Put it down. I keep telling you, put it down. Well, there's some reasons that we don't. We don't know what's coming. And besides that, there's only so much water we can flow. I'd like to emphasize that right now, as you know, the water's high. And some of you, many of you, may well know too, we are flowing a lot of water. If it's not the most water that's ever been pushed through there at this time of year, it's like tied for it. It's way up there. So for people who are understandably nervous and want to see those water levels going down, it's not as if the plan doesn't provide for that. I'd like to just in a few minutes, because we want to leave some time for some questions, address what I think is the single greatest misunderstanding, at least from the people who call me with their deep and sincere concerns about what's happening to them in their properties in high water, very high water. I hear over and over, this plan doesn't allow for deviation. The triggers are too high. How many of you have heard that? The triggers are too high. You can't deviate soon enough. The old plan, the board got to deviate much more frequently. Well, for the many people who are calling me with very legitimate concerns, they're thinking that we're not pushing a lot of water as much as possible until the trigger is reached. That's not the case. The plan that was developed with the wisdom and the expertise and modern computers and modelers like Bill Warrick takes into consideration all the knowledge that was developed in the 50 preceding years. All the times they had to turn to the board under the old plan and the board had to scratch their head and figure out what to do. We had 50 plus more years of records. We could use those data. It's built into the plan. You don't need to deviate from the plan because the plan's a smart plan. And it'll get smarter because, as Bill will speak we're working on adaptive management with a great deal of experts and a variety of experts in there. Did we miss something? Is there some new knowledge? What happens? But some things will always be so. That the force that is the dominant factor in whether you live with high waters or low waters or extremely low waters or terribly high waters is what comes or does not come from the sky. Not just directly in Clayton, but all the way over in Duluth, all the way down in Chicago, all the way over to Lake Michigan where I'm a riparian. It all comes by this magnificent place in Clayton eventually. And what is the power of the water that is the love of your lives is also, like any other love of our lives, can be pretty challenging. and not always to our liking. So with that, in the interest of time, I want to say that yesterday we met with some of the folks in Albany from the government. We meet regularly with people in the federal governments, both countries. We meet with people in Quebec and in Ontario. We meet so that we can understand collectively what the issues are and how we can do better. But I'll say this, those who are most knowledgeable know that no plan will ever be able to protect against extreme conditions. It just isn't going to happen. You will be flooded again. Lord hopes it's not next year and that it's a long way away, but it will happen. It happened before the dam. It happened under Plan 58DD. It'll happen under Plan 2014, and it'll happen whatever follows Plan 2014. As long as that river flows, from time to time, there'll be more water than you ever want to see in it. What we need to do as public servants, as volunteers, as environmentalists, as business people, as whatever we are, we need to address better coastal resiliency. How do we prepare for these high water times, the extreme water conditions, and how do we prepare for living through it, not just avoiding it. So Bill is going to tell us that. He's going to talk about adaptive management, and to him I leave the hard questions. Thank you very much.